Hey, what's up, guys? Node Investor here. How are all my friends in the crypto sphere doing on this wonderful day? Hope everyone is doing well. Get the reverb out of the way. So, Bitcoin, what are you doing, Bitcoin? Is this thing going to rally? Is it going to correct? Everybody, what's going on here? Is it over? Is the next alt season finally upon us? You know, starting to look more and more like that is the case. And so I'm going to talk about some of the charts, make a case for the alt rally that we are seeing happening, not across the board, but man, there's some good movement out there. A lot of stuff happening. A lot of things are setting up, looking strong, and everything just waiting on BTC, of course, which is, a little annoying sometimes, but it's kind of the way it is right now. They're, if you missed my other video, I did talk about how if Bitcoin bottoms out here in April, I fully expected the alts to bottom out before that, once they started to sense that Bitcoin was hitting a low, and maybe we're seeing some of that. So we'll see. There's a couple of factors that may potentially be influencing that, and I will go over that here in a little bit with some news, some notable news items, and then, of course, we're going to talk charts. And so I've got a little bit of a list that I will go through first, and then we'll open it up and cover any names that you guys want to go through. So hold off on asking for names just now, just so I don't miss too many of them. But I will certainly check the comments. I'll go the big three: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and then some of the other big names: EOS, Cardano, Neo. We'll talk Tron, Binance, Verge, WAN, Waves, Elf, Dragon, AION, and POWR. So got a few of those. And so greetings, everyone. Got a lot of Europeans on the line today. That's cool. Glad you guys can make it. I try to mix up the times here a little bit just to get the, mix it up, because there's people from all over the place, and I appreciate you guys joining. I appreciate you guys being on. And so let's get to it. Did I include ION on that list? I didn't, but I will certainly cover ION and a few of these other names that I'm seeing here. So London in the house. Charts don't matter. It's all about the FUD. I would highly disagree with you. Charts do matter. They're not the whole picture, but they absolutely matter. And let's see. All right, cool. So we'll definitely do that. And all right. So let's get to it. Hello from Brooklyn, Jamaica in the house. All right. So first off, the big picture, right? It's no secret that Bitcoin has been in a bear market. Some people say it's not a bear market. It's a bear market. When every altcoin and BTC is down 50, 60, 70%, that's a bear market. But it's a short-lived one so far, right? It's 3 months long. Feels like much longer, because in the crypto space, time moves at faster rates. So, we just think about BTC here, right? The last 11 days of this kind of choppy action has felt like a month. It's like, come on already. And, it's just what it is. But big picture, and I was talking to somebody earlier about this today, is, everybody wanted to buy Bitcoin when it was moving this way, and it was at 16,000 and 18,000 and 19,000. But now that it's pulled back so far, here we are at 7K, nobody wants to buy it, right? It's kind of like, oh no, Bitcoin's crashing, stay away. And so you have to ask yourself, if you're a long-term believer in the space, if you are bullish in the crypto sphere, you think this is going to continue higher, then after a big correction and a test lower, you got to start in the longer term view, right? You got to start saying, okay, do I believe Bitcoin is going to be at 7K or higher in 6 months, in 1 year, right? If you start looking at it from that, and if you ask me that, my answer is yes, I do. I think Bitcoin will be higher, when you take a little bit of a longer term view. In the next week, in the next 2 weeks, it's anyone's guess. But if you start looking at that, I have the belief that the fundamentals are there, the picture is there, the strength is showing up. You're seeing talk of ETF again. That could be a strong catalyst. You're starting to see institutional money. Yeah, you're reading the FUD in the news. Oh, these hedge funds have closed down and Bitcoin hedge funds or crypto hedge funds are dying off. Couldn't be further from the truth. There is so much Wall Street money setting up and making moves. There is the institutional platforms that are coming online. So this thing is growing, guys. It's not dying. And so it's just a matter of when. And the smart money is starting to buy in here at the lows. You're seeing some big names, Soros, Rockefellers, right? The prominent investment names are stepping into the game. And so from that perspective, it's like we're probably a lot closer to the bottom than we are at the top or even at the middle. And so that's just my personal belief. That's my opinion. Near term, absolutely. It's volatile. It could do anything. But this thing, I believe, is starting to form a base. Now, near term, we'll get to that here in a second. But the longer term, right, that's what you got to look at. And I had been talking about, hey, maybe this is the 2013 cycle, and that's probably not even a fair comparison because the fundamentals in 2013 and 14 were way different than they are today. But everyone's expecting this. Oh, we're in 2014 type of action, and we're going to have a 2-year bear market, and this is just going to go sideways and be boring and flat for a long time. And I'm not in that camp, and you guys know I'm not. So I'm just not expecting a 2-year dry period of crypto doing nothing. In fact, I think it's going to finish much sooner than that because there's a lot of money on the sidelines that's looking to come in, and as more products and instruments become available, vehicles become available for people to be able to invest in crypto, it's just going to make it that much more mainstream. And you look at the total market cap, man, $260 billion. Sure, $260 billion is a lot of money, but in the big scheme of things, when it comes to capital markets, that's tiny, and that's come off quite a bit from the old highs. And so you look at from that perspective, the valuations have certainly come back to a little bit more of a reality. Remember when Delta Coin was like $2 billion or $1 billion? It's like, okay, the world had gone mad. We've had the big reset, right? And so now we're kind of flattening out here and showing a little bit of accumulation. And so that's good. We talked about Tom Lee, and he has his predictions. He still thinks Bitcoin's going to be higher near the end of the year, and he has a good point, right? The whole taxes is really weighing down on the crypto markets. And here in the United States, tax day is next week. And so April 17th is tax day here, meaning you better send your check to the IRS. If you don't, you got to file an extension and all that fun stuff. But there's the theory here is crypto has been under pressure, partly because of this, and you're seeing a massive outflow as people are forced to sell crypto and sell Bitcoin for taxes and for gains that were made in the 2017 year. And it's been brutal. And I know, just talking to several people personally, right, they booked a lot of gains, and then in the first 3 months of the year, they lost a lot of those gains, and then now the tax bill's due. And it's just it's rough out there with that perspective. So this is certainly weighing in on that and certain playing a part in that. So it'll be interesting to see how this affects the market, if any, next week, right? When tax is behind us and we're in a new season, and we'll see where it goes from there. So that's the other thing. So some other news. Bittrex? Do you guys still remember Bittrex? Used to be a big exchange back in the day. I'm kidding. I still use Bittrex, but certainly has not had the volume that it used to have. But they're opening to new customers again. We saw some names being added yesterday. Polymath was added to Bittrex and had a pretty decent little pump on the news. I was like, wow, Bittrex still has that effect apparently. So they're now accepting new users through registration, but they got some work to do here, because I know they're working to improve their infrastructure and upgrade their website, and they really do. It's definitely not the cleanest user interface and the most professional looking trading platform. Let's just put it that way. I mean, it gets the job done if you're just trying to exchange normal stuff, but if you're doing trading and stuff like that, it needs some updating for sure. But hey, they're opening the doors again. Golem, remember Golem? That's a name from yesteryear. So half of the folks on this call probably don't remember Golem, because you guys are like, what's Golem? That was from, it was like one of the darlings back in the May April, May, June pumps of last year and had a big move and then just really gave it all up. And, it's kind of back in the news there, the app and the whole distributed, internet distributed storage and all that is still very much out there with blockchain. And they have some competition for sure, but hey, Golem's back. They continue to do development on the project. We've seen some moves coming in on this one, and I've seen some moves in some of the names, a lot of the names from yesteryear. But yeah, look at Golem. I mean, just strong volume coming in on that news. Big move off the low last couple of days. Here you look at the 4-hour chart, just some wild action on Golem. I mean, look at this. This is a 54% move in 4 hours and then back down. It just kind of all over the place, but definitely in the news here, and just continues to develop. And so it's good to see this, guys. It really is, because this space is just so young. And the question, the concern is always, there's so many projects out here, they raise money and then they kind of fall off the map. What happens to them, right? And it's good to see that, hey, this development is continuing. And we know that when a project is announced and the white paper comes out and all that stuff, like anything tangible, any real apps is still kind of a ways out. So when you start to see more and more of these projects coming online and really becoming real products and all that, that's just going to further validate the space and really help with cryptocurrency and blockchain adoption as a whole. So Golem back in the news. So, all right, that's going to be it for now on the news side of things. Let's talk charts. Let's get to the market. So we already talked the coin market cap. There certainly has been some big movers in the last day. ELF, Verge, all the names that have continued to lead the pack here in the last couple of days, weeks. WAN Chain's moving out pretty good, and a few others here. So let's take a look at some of these here. So first off, Bitcoin. So I talked Bitcoin big picture. On the downside, the near term is this little support area around $6,400. I'll show the trend line that I'm watching there. But then below that, if it continues to sell off, then that 6K area in and around there is the level to continue to watch. This probably was the low with the volume that we saw there, but could retest it, could undershoot a little bit if it sells off. But if you go to the zoom in chart here near term, looking at the 4-hour, 1-hour charts, here's the pattern that I'm watching, right? You can see there's a series of higher or lower highs coming in here. And on the downside, there is higher lows starting to form here. And it's definitely forming a little bit of a pennant. Now, to be fair, this is a bear pennant because it is a pennant that shows up following the move lower. So you had the big pullback, and then it's a little bit of an equilibrium pattern, symmetrical pattern, however you want to call it, where the pattern starts to narrow. And usually they resolve itself before it hits the apex of this pattern. And so here we are, and I'm watching this thinking, okay, if this is a bear pennant, I mean, odds favor, usually these tend to break to the downside, right? And we saw this big volume break off of resistance here a couple of days ago. It's kind of bouncing right into that moving average, and we're right in the middle now. And so it's going to be interesting to see if that's gonna be holding here or not. And the level to look here is, not necessarily the 6,400, but an early signal would be if we start to close below this most recent low around, that 6,500 mark or so. And then below that, then that's going to be the level of support to watch, and then the 6K mark. There's other people out there saying we're going to 4K, we're going to 3K, we're going to 1,300. Sorry to laugh, but yeah, no. It's just, there was a comment saying that, oh, if we break below 1,300, then I'm going to really start to get worried. Well, no duh. I would too. But, we'll see where it goes. I'm not out here making these calls. I think near term, 6K and then 5K ultimately would be my lowest price personally. So that's my opinion, but we'll see where it goes. And this is the thing to watch here in the next day or so on the BTC side. Until this remains range bound, I think those alts will continue to run higher. So let's start looking at some of these alts. ETH, man, this one has just been so weak versus Bitcoin until now. It's finally starting to show some life. Has been outperforming here the last couple of days. It was just so oversold in the long-term picture versus Bitcoin. Has it finally found a bottom? you know, it's starting to look that way. This one's looking pretty good here. Finally on the pullback, what I'm using as a gauge for this one is the USD pair. Is, you know, you look at the retracement that it had all the way back to this big base that it broke out of here middle last year, this big ascending triangle, and it just fully retraced that move. So right around that $400 mark, very oversold, bouncing off that. And so it's starting to look good. It's starting to look like it may have found a pretty good low and setting up a good bottoming formation, also outperforming Bitcoin in the near term. A close above this 420, 425 range, getting around there, would certainly start to show some good upside confirmation. We've seen a few tests into that range here in the last couple of weeks, but we got to get above that, and that would really start to show some validation that that was the low in and around that 360. So looking at that one here, Litecoin kind of just sitting par with Bitcoin in terms of outperformance. So you can see here, there's the daily chart, just in a really tight range versus BTC, not looking as strong as ETH now versus BTC. But if you go to the USD pair on Litecoin, also not too bad, trying to put some long-term bottoming action here around that low $100 mark. So if you go to the daily chart, you can see that this was also the area at the February lows where a lot of support showed up and found some good support. So around that $100 mark ultimately. So we'll see if this can break out. Now this is a little bit of a descending triangle pattern. So there's some strong support around 110, 112. If that cracks, then maybe you do see a retest of $100. But this is the strong support area long-term to be watching on Litecoin. But not really outperforming a whole lot on the BTC side. EOS. So two ways to look at EOS. EOS USD. Getting very narrow in this range here and setting up for a move. And you can see how tight and quiet this has been getting here in the last couple of days. This is the daily chart of EOS and just holding a very tight range here around this $6 mark. And so keep an eye on this here. Also a little bit of an equilibrium pattern. You can see this is getting narrow from that perspective here with the support and the resistance overhead just about done. So EOS in the next day or two will certainly show its next move. That's what I'm expecting here. If you look at EOS on the BTC side, then this is looking really good, right? If you look at it from this perspective, just on the daily chart, just continues to march higher, has these little bit of a pullbacks, finds support, moves higher on stronger volume, pulls back on lighter volume, and all around very positive action, has definitely turned the corner, put in a good low versus Bitcoin in just the last couple of weeks, month or so, has been one of the stronger names in the market. And they're, you know, doing a lot of development, a lot of big milestones coming up here over the next couple of months. And so I think you'll continue to see some positive action on EOS here in the next, you know, couple of months or so. At that point, you know, it'll be testing some major support or major resistance, excuse me. If it continues higher and gets into this range, that's going to be a big test, because that's really where we saw a lot of topping action, some selling showing up there. But right now, it's looking pretty good. Cardano. Type in Cardano. Looking at Cardano BTC, long-term low being established here, looking really strong, putting in some bottoming formations. If we zoom in a little bit here, this is the 4-hour charts, starting to see some signs of accumulation showing up on Cardano. And so you see these big volume spikes of green. I mean, there's some selling here, but that turns into some support. And then we saw it here just yesterday and starting to bounce. And so on the upside, and I've got the line here already, this blue line here, this is really the level to watch. If it starts to close above this, you can see it's tried a few times here in the past, but getting above that is definitely going to be the signal to be watching out for. If you want to look at it a little bit different here, there's a little bit of a slight decline to this angle, this resistance. And so a close above this would be a little bit more of an early signal. But Cardano is looking pretty good here. I'm really liking this setup versus BTC, putting in some long-term bottoming action here. After a very steep correction, you can see as this thing is continuing lower here and sitting tight, the RSI is definitely starting to get strong here, starting to move north. And so that's positive. The volume is showing up here at the lows. And so this just tells me that this has probably found a pretty good low, and it looking like it wants to break out here. So watch list, got to be keeping an eye on Cardano here in the near term. One of the bigger names got a lot of attention here. So I think if it starts to move, it will continue with some good momentum here just because a lot of people are watching Cardano. And right now it's at $4 billion. It's well off the highs. You look at the prior highs, which in my opinion were probably a little too high, overvalued. It was at 33 billion at one point, and here it is back to 4. 4 is still a pretty big one, but definitely not where it used to be. So keep an eye on Cardano here. One of the stronger projects long term that I'm watching. NEO. Oh, NEO. So let's go to NEO dollar first. So NEO dollar has been trying to put in some good lows here. Let me clear my lines for you guys. But what I'm liking about this is the volume that came in here at the lows. And so I was talking about NEO dollar long-term potential, you know, in this zone. I said 40, low 40s to $50 NEO. I like that long-term. I think that's not a bad valuation long-term. And here in the last day, we just saw some massive volume coming at the lows. Now, to be fair, we've seen this before, right? You saw this big low here and just tons of volume, but certainly drifted lower. But here we are seeing it again right at this support line. So putting in a pretty good bottom. And if you go to NEO near term, looking at the 4-hour chart, saw that big pump, pulled back, and so far it's holding this moving average. Looks like it wants to continue higher now, setting up a little bit of a secondary entry. The trend has certainly shifted here in the last day or so, and so you're starting to see that move higher. If it maintains this trend line, that'll be positive, especially the volume starts to pick up as it moves higher. If you look at NEO versus BTC, also looking really strong. And you can see this pullback was right to support, a little bit of a secondary entry and trying to turn the corner. A little bit of a bull flag setting up here on this 4-hour. So keep an eye on NEO, see if it can start to move higher. The level that I'm watching, whoops, let me clear that trend line here. The level to be watching, right, is just kind of a break of this trend that it's testing right now. But the moving average is certainly caught up. The volume on this pullback was really quiet, really light, and so very constructive, normal pause. You go to the daily chart here, just the strong volume off the lows. It just warrants paying attention to that, right? When you see that kind of action off the lows, that just definitely gets on my radar, right? When I start to see this type of move after a big steep pullback, strong reversal, trying to turn the trend here. So NEO, can I review the NEO Lambo pair? Maybe one day we'll be looking at NEO Lambo pairs. Let's see here. What's next on my list? I was going to talk Tron. So Tron, and Tron I have very mixed feelings about because of I like to trade it. Let's just put it that way. Tron, it makes for some decent trading, but Tron was showing some unusual volume action here, you know, a couple days ago, pausing, gave you this big pullback, and then here in the last day was trying again. So this is the 1 hour, very granular look, but you can see here on the 1 hour of Tron had a pretty good pump, a little bit of a pullback, giving you a little bit of a secondary entry point above the near-term resistance that it was setting up here, just cleared that strongly, and now it looks like it wants to move higher. So keep an eye on Tron. If you look at the bigger picture, right, that's a tiny move compared to some of this stuff. And so maybe we're just going to get a little bit of a bounce play, a secondary bounce, and that's it. But if that's all it turns out to be, let me do this here. It's still not a bad bounce, right? I mean, if it just bounces into some fib level, then you could see, you know, 15, 20% from here. And if it goes to the next level, that's almost 30%. So for a bounce, wouldn't be bad. So I'm keeping an eye on Tron here from that perspective. I'm just not a long-term holder of Tron, not a believer in it. Not yet. You guys got to convince me. Crypto in the house. How you doing, brother? So for those of you guys that don't know, I will be at the Crypto Invest Summit in Los Angeles, May 1st and 2nd. So if you're out there, maybe we'll do a meetup or something, and happy to meet you guys. I'm only going to be there for a couple days. It's going to be a pretty quick trip because I'm flying out of LA and then I'm heading to Omaha later that week. All right, next on my list. So we talked Tron, Binance. Becoming the broken record on Binance because I always talk about Binance. But looking at Binance here, meet up with F giveaways. I'm going to do a meetup with some Tron giveaways. You just distracted me. I'm gonna stop reading the comments for a second. All right, so looking at Binance here. So a couple of things to look at here on the BTC chart, right? We had this strong rally that took you right back to the old highs. And what I wanted to see was a pause / pullback here to the highs because the RSI, as it was bumping up there, was really high. It was up to the 80s, and it could have continued higher, but didn't have a lot of technical room to continue if it really gave a strong push. Now that it's paused, now that it's pulled back a little bit, and this is the daily chart, mind you, it's right at the 10 EMA, could go a little bit lower, but it's, ideally some sideways action here would be very strong because it's letting this RSI really cool off, and even if it started to break out now, it would have plenty of headroom to take that out and break into new highs versus BTC. If you look at Binance USD pair, this is also looking pretty good and setting up this nice little trend, a little bit of a ascending triangle type pattern starting to form here. And so what I'm looking at on this side here is, let me highlight that here for you guys, is this little region right here, right? So that little section there is really starting to set up. It's looking pretty good here. It was trying to form maybe a little bit of a cup and handle, but that's handle's now kind of gone too deep, but it's holding that support line. So if it can bounce off here and start to move higher, then this would be a nice ascending triangle pattern following this run. So this is Binance USD pair right now, right at $12. Support is right below, so it looks good here. And ultimately needs to clear this resistance around that $14 mark. And above that, then you're looking at $16, then $22 as the next major ones here. QuantStamp, that's on my list. I'm actually going to cover that here. So has been quite the mover here the last couple of days. So that's Binance, but it's looking pretty good. Definitely on my watch list here, guys. I'm liking Binance, and I like Binance more longer term. Verge, everyone's favorite right now. Verge. Okay, so Verge. Daily chart. So here's the thing with Verge. It just depends on the strategy, right? I mean, if you're a believer in Verge and you think Verge is going to go back to the old highs here, then the trend is very much your friend. And you got to give this one a lot of room because so far it's holding this daily moving average, and these pullbacks are supported, and it just continues higher. Verge is, Verge is what, $1.2 billion now, 1.3 almost. Like that's, I don't know. Is Verge really worth that much, guys? I mean, it's up there, but hey, the market it's voting on Verge, so I don't hold any Verge long term. But that being said, daily chart feels extended in my opinion. You go to the 4-hour chart, as long as it maintains this trend, it's holding okay. You're seeing some big volume reversal near the top. That's usually a warning sign, so I'd be careful there. And if you go to the 1-hour chart, it looks like it might be forming a little bit of a double top here. So I'd be keeping an eye on this. If it can't clear this most recent top here in the next couple of hours, then the level to watch is this potential neckline. You're seeing some bearish divergence on the RSI. Granted, this RSI was pretty high here, but you're still seeing some bearish divergence. And so best case, it'll pause here. It looks like it's running out of steam a little bit, but maybe you get one of these type of moves and then it continues higher. Worst case, you take a slice right through that neckline, then it forms a big double top. At that point, you're looking at the longer term charts, most likely the daily, because this is a little bit of extended, so you can see this thing pull back to this prior support here. From current price point, that's going to be about a 20 to 25% pullback if you see that play out. That would also line up with the measured move on the double top. And so that's what I'm watching on Verge. Keep an eye on that one. You got to zoom in on this one near term. Keep an eye on this 1-hour chart on Verge. Make sure that doesn't really turn into a double top. But right now, the warning flags are showing up for me. WAN just continues to look good, stair-stepping its way higher. So let me go to the daily chart on WAN first. Not a lot of history, but you can see it's cleared this exchange debut price, ICO price, whatever you want to call it here. But it's cleared it, and there's just no overhead resistance now, and this is looking really good. And when there's something is moving into new highs, the trend tends to continue because there's not a lot of overhead resistance. You'll get this little pullbacks and pauses, but it's looking pretty good. Now, if you go near term, this blue line here, that was the overhead. You can see it ran right to that pause just below, and here in the last day, breaking out, and just strong volume patterns on this guy. When it broke out of this flag, big volume there, breaking out here recently, big volume here. And when something is in new high territory, the RSI carries a lot less weight because it's just a new high ground at that point. So like if you look at the daily chart, right, the RSI just really doesn't mean a whole lot here. The 12-hour chart starting to build some, but at that point, I start watching price and volume action mostly and looking for reversal pattern and stuff like that. But the pullbacks tend to offer secondary entry opportunities when something is moving this strong and is in new high territory. And so got to keep an eye on WAN. What's the valuation on this guy right now? Looking at the WAN chain, we are at $445 million. And so, you can see that was it's not bad. Has a pretty good move here so far. So WAN's looking pretty good. Definitely one of the stronger names right now. But I'd be watching kind of the short-term charts and looking for those secondary entries. But looking pretty good here. Waves. So I want to talk about waves. Waves I've been watching for quite some time now on this chart here. So on waves, I've been watching this little bit of a falling wedge form for all of 2018. And so this is kind of a long-term pattern here. But notice in the last couple of days, last week and a half or so, it's really starting to put in a little bit of a bottom here. And so that's the level that I'm watching near term on waves. This blue line here is the near term support, very strong. You're seeing some strong volume starting to come in here. Hasn't confirmed. It needs to really break above this downtrend resistance line. But in the short run, it's starting to put in a pretty good low, looking like it wants to go higher. Here's waves on the 1 hour. Now this is a lower volume name, mind you, so it has these spikes, but definitely moves. Let's go to waves on Binance here. You can see here the volume starting to come in. So the last several hours have been very strong for waves. Needs to confirm that downtrend, but in the short run, I'm liking the fact that it's breaking out of this little bit of a zone that it was putting in, this bottoming formation, and starting to clear resistance. As long as it can hold here, you can see maybe a little bit of a pullback here, but I'm watching that. And ultimately, I'm watching that overhead downward trend line, because that'll be a nice break of a big falling wedge on waves. So this one's looking pretty good here. All right, ELF, man. Someone wanted a lot of ELF here, but ELF's looking pretty good here. And looking at the daily chart here, I mean, just watch this bottoming pattern here. You can see we put it low here. RSI really started to move, and then, man, just powerful move right through any overhead resistance. And this one actually gave you a little bit of a preview before it broke out here. So you can see this was the range I was watching here. It broke out, and it's not unusual to see these throwbacks, right? You see the breakout, and then it pulls right back, but it holds above the breakout point, and then the volume just came in and it was gone, right? So near term, definitely a little bit of extended. So you guys know me, I don't chase these. I like to see these pause, give you a secondary entry point, but no doubt, if you go to the big picture, that is a strong reversal off the lows. You can't argue with that volume here. And so ELF has definitely got to be on the radar now, guys. Let me see. I got Dragon. I'll skip that one. I'll go to CoinGeek, but I'll do AION next. Another one I'm watching, similar type action. And so many of these alts are starting to do this, guys, and they're just setting up these bottoms. Had this rally pulling in here. And now you can see that the blue line is that overhead that I'm watching here near term, but you can see there's a little bit of a symmetrical pattern starting to form. Early signal would be getting above this most recent range on the daily chart here, and then ultimately clearing the blue line there is the resistance, and that'll really form a good bottoming pattern here on ELF, or AION, excuse me. If you go near term, this is the 4 hour. That's the level that I'd be watching here. This little consolidation that's putting in right now. And the thing that I like is this big volume pump that it had off the low, and right now it's just pausing, digesting a little bit of that move. It starts to clear this. That's going to be a pretty good early signal, as that will be taking out some near-term resistance, in and around here. It has already kind of broken out, in my opinion. So I'm watching this one for sure. Got to keep an eye on this next move here over the next couple of hours. POWR. POWR ledger. So I've actually got an alert set up on this guy here, and I'm watching this little formation here. There's a little bit of a bull flag potentially forming, but I'm just liking the long-term bottoming action this is putting in. Some good accumulation signs here, some strong volume patterns coming in off the lows. You can see it cleared off the lows with some strong volume. It's pulling back, and it's just really starting to set up here. Now living above the shorter-term moving average. And so this one's looking pretty good here. RSI is starting to look strong here. The bull momentum index is certainly in the bull zone there, so showing that the trend has some strength. And so I'm liking that one. Near term, that's what I'm watching on POWR, just this little bit of a downtrend. Want to see that taken out here, and it's really close. Looks like it wants to. You can see the last several hours have been very strong on POWR. Okay, I've got two more on my list, and then I will get through those. So I've got DRGN and ICX. I left off Ontology. I will definitely cover that. And so we'll go through those. So let me do ICX. And so another one that has been pretty strong here today. Looking at the daily, right, had that big move a couple weeks ago, right? Give you this very good pullback. And the thing that I watch here, I look at RSI a lot as one of my tools. And when something remains in bull mode, the RSI tends to bottom around that 40. And you can see that that's where that pullback came right back to. Now, the pullback was a little bit steeper than I had hoped, but it did find a pretty good low. Undercut that 618 fib level just a little bit right in the middle there. And now it looks like it wants to move higher. It's trying to get back above this 10 EMA in the daily chart. But if you go in and look at the closer action here, these 4-hour charts, you're starting to see some pretty good bottom in action here on the 4-hour. It'll confirm when it can clear this here on the 4-hour charts. But I'm really liking this one here on the 1-hour. It's been looking pretty strong here today. Just some strong moves higher, holding this moving average so far. And so keep an eye on Icon. It looks like it's really trying to put in a good low here, higher low than what I call the ultimate low here a couple weeks ago. And so that's looking pretty good. If it can break out above this little range that it's been in, that will confirm that. You can say that's a little bit of an inverted head and shoulder, a little bit flat and wide that I would like to see. But nonetheless, the effect is the same. If it can clear this resistance, then you can see a pretty decent move higher on this one. Let me jump over here, and then I'll do ONT next. Some of you guys are asking about DRGN here, and long term, it's looking pretty good here. Finally, has putting some good bottom in action here. We saw the first big hammer reversal bottom there a couple of weeks back, and then here last week saw some very strong volume that showed some follow through, and now it's just kind of sitting tight. But look at these little pullbacks, and then it pumps, and then it gives you another bit of a pullback. And so I'm watching this one here. Now it's on KuCoin, and so not as accessible as some of the others if you're not on KuCoin. But let's see if they finally can add this to some of the other exchanges. But I like the volume here, so you got to pay attention to this one here. It looks like it has finally, maybe finally, found a pretty good low here. So got to watch that. That's the level I'm watching on the downside if it decides to pull back in. But DRGN. All right. Not OINT, ONT. So Ontology, one of the leaders that we've seen, continues to march higher. And the thing with these, this is basically new high ground. And so if you're watching RSI and you're looking at all that stuff, there's not a lot to go off of there. You're just looking at price volume action, and the trend remains in place. I mean, it has these pullbacks back to the daily chart, but the trend is still there. I mean, just right back to the moving average, pull back, moving average, and just look at the volume coming in on this guy. I mean, just tons of volume, very bullish action. No sellers showing up just yet. Most of the selling has been very short-lived here. You see we had a pretty good little bit of a pullback here. Looked like it was going to finally roll over, and then the buyers came in and just has been marching steadily higher since this. So looking strong all around. I'm not seeing any major sell signals yet. Again, near term, this is the trend to watch, right? That's a pretty steep trend. More longer term, you're watching the daily here and just kind of riding this. As long as that holds, it's going to be looking pretty good. So would be nice to see some sort of basing, another little bit of a flag or secondary entry point. But for now, man, Ont. I would stay with the Ontology until it shows signs of reversal here. Here's a 30-minute, right? You've seen some selling show up here, but until the trend breaks, right? That's really the thing to watch near term on this guy here. Yeah, exactly. It's trending because there's no bag holders, and that's what happens every time, right? There's no more overhead resistance. There's nobody that has been buying tons of it at prices way up. So when something hits all-time highs, they can go much further than people expect. All right. So let me go through the comments here, guys, and start covering some of these. So we did ICX. We did waves. Actually, you know what I'm going to do here? I'm going to open up another window here. I'm going to list some of these names just so, because I tend to forget them. I say, yeah, I'll do that one next, and then you guys are mad because I never do it. So let me go through the list here. So we'll do district. That one's been moving here a little bit. We covered WAN. We'll do IOTA. Haven't covered that one. Just NEBL, Zill and Blue Zell. Yeah, those are looking pretty good here too. So we'll definitely look at those. Verge, we covered Verge. We covered waves. Walton. Let's take a look at the Walton coin here. OMG. Yeah, let's do OMG. Audio out, no sound. I think everybody can hear me. Hopefully you can hear me. Salt. Yeah, let's take a look at Salt. That one's been showing some pretty interesting action here. Substratum. It's definitely strong over the weekend. NAM. Forming a pretty good low here. Let's see. POWR. We did Ont. AION. I like it here at the lows. Should I pick some more up? I like it. QuantStab. Look at that one. I'm not doing anything on my screen, guys. I'm just looking at the comments here and making a list so that I don't forget. All right, that probably gives us enough to go for at this point. I'll add Lumens, Quantum, and then we'll see from there. Okay, let's get to it. I'm just going to go down the list that I punched them in here. So district. So looking at district, BTC. Again, smaller cap name. I think this is probably sitting at around what, 40 or 50 now. So 36. So definitely tiny micro cap relative to the rest of the market. But in the most recent weeks has definitely been putting in some strong accumulation patterns. You can see the big volume spikes here as this thing moves higher. And that's not unusual on a smaller cap name, just because if there's any sort of decent volume that starts showing up, you'll get that type of action with those big long wicks. And so you have to discount those wicks a little bit. But if you look at the overall trend, right, you get the strong volume moves higher, pulls back, strong volume moves higher, pull back. And the buyers are stepping in at higher and higher pricing. And so this one's looking pretty good. It definitely looks like it has found a low. Looks like it's found a bottom. And near term, that's what I'd be watching. You know, more specifically, this support level. If it starts to break below that, especially on some strong volume, then that will negate a lot of the strength that this one's been showing near term. But not a bad one here. IOTA. So let's go IOTA USD first, because that's the level I was watching here. IOTA USD, that $1 mark has been kind of a psychological barrier, key support resistance area here. And we had a full retracement, very similar to a lot of these other names like ETH and NEO, where they just came right back to these long time support areas. And so got to watch that one here. If I had to guess, I mean, this one's a tough one just because the technology is still, you know, it's still kind of like, is this going to really happen? Are people going to do this? But just from the chart, I mean, this is a good low, good long-term low in my opinion. But you got to watch this overhead resistance line. Just hasn't broken that yet. But it's looking pretty good in and around this dollar mark. I mean, it's undershotted a little bit to 92 cents, but this is what I'm watching here, and I think it's a pretty good low. But it's got to confirm. It's not confirming like some of these other names. If you go to the 1 hour chart here, you're still seeing some selling pressure. I mean, this was marching higher with Bitcoin over the weekend, and it sold off just with everything else. If you look at IOTA BTC, sitting very tight and very narrow here. So not bad. Looks like it's trying to maybe round this corner here. But what I'm looking at is more recent action, right? This little line here, and close above this little resistance zone would really start to confirm. Then you would see that translate on the USD pair. So got to watch this one here. It's not looking bad all around. Not one of the strongest names yet, but not bad. NEBL, kiddo NEBL. And so NEBL has just been in this really narrow range here. It looked like it broke out a couple weeks ago and then just came right back to the box, but not bad. And so I'm watching this one here. It's looking pretty good. It's moving out of range now. It's tried here recently. And so if it can clear this little area of resistance, and you can see that this most recent move higher, the wick went almost right to that point and the seller showed up. But generally speaking, if it moves higher, they do take those out, right? At that point, the second or the third test, it just takes it out. So this one's looking pretty good. If you look at the hourlies, just strong volume. This was really the signal, this most recent hour. Right now, it's just giving you a little bit of a pause pullback. Everything looks like it wants to move higher and break out above this most recent resistance. So NEBL is looking pretty good here on this daily chart. Let me see here. It's, yeah, that resistance is at prior support there. So not bad. Looking pretty good. What's NEBL's market cap nowadays? I'm just curious. I'd like to see where these names stand in the market cap ranking. So $103 million. Man, at one point NEBL was almost 800 million. It was crazy. It was 750. So it's come down quite a ways. Maybe ZIL. So looking at the ZIL. We get another one that if it can clear out this resistance, will have no more overhead resistance, will be a new high territory. So definitely want one to watch here. Near term, I'm liking this one. Looking like it's putting in a pretty strong double bottom here. You can see this one. Most recent double bottom coming in, slightly undercutting there. Strong volume at the lows on the second low, which is what you want to see on a double bottom. Confirmation will be getting above this here near term, and we're pretty close to that here. I mean, this is 3-4% above, and so definitely one to watch. It's looking really strong here in the most recent few hours, and that's not a bad double bottom that's trying to form here after this pullback. A measured move on this. If you get a double bottom, I'm going to discount these wicks and just go with the bodies, the candle bodies here. You can say that's your measured move on the breakouts. That takes it out to there, and from current pricing, that's about a 10% move. But the thing to watch is if it can get that high, then it's retesting the most recent high. Would make sense to see a little bit of a pause, pullback, and then a breakout to new highs. So that's really the thing to watch here. If it can take out that and then move higher, then you could see that move follow through to the upside. So looking pretty good all around. Not bad. NCASH. Oh yeah, didn't cover NCASH. Gotta watch NCASH. Talked about that in one of my prior videos, and it's still looking pretty good. Put that on the list. All right, so next on the list. So this guy is moving out pretty good. Give you a nice little low here today. So looking at the 4-hour chart, a little bit of a reversal, just kind of pausing. Needs that little bit of a pause, but you're seeing that on the hourlies. Look how strong this guy is. I mean, just breaking out today. And these pullbacks on lower volume are exactly what you want to see. When I'm looking to trade something, that's what I look for, right? If it moves so strongly and I don't catch it early, I'd rather not chase it, especially with the RSI and the 1 hour being so high. I'd rather wait for a little bit of a pause, pullback, exactly like what you're seeing here, and touch back to these moving averages. Once it starts to go there, then those are nice secondary entry points. But if you look at the daily chart, this is looking really good. Looks like it's finally put in a strong bottom here. I'd like to see a little bit more volume on this daily chart. You could probably get that, though. The daily still has, what, 4 hours left in it, so not bad, but looking good all around. So I'm liking this guy here. Just watch this 1 hour here. I mean, if it really pulls back, the most you're going to want to see it pull back is this breakout points, right? Anything below that and really would start to invalidate the breakout and be more of a failed breakout. But that's a good 8% back. I'm not sure you'll see it pull back quite that much. Unless BTC decides to go to 5K tomorrow. Then all bets are off the table. But yeah, this was a good one here. All right. Next on my list, BNB. We covered Binance Coin. Let me go through the list here. I've got OMG on the list. We'll certainly get to that. Let me see here. What else? We talked IOTA Lisk. Okay, haven't looked at Lisk in a while. Substratum is on the list. We'll certainly do that one. It's coming up close. So, okay, well, let's keep going. So next on the list was Walton. Looking at the Walton coin, just, hasn't really found a low yet. It's trying, but I mean, compared to some of these other names, right, where they're putting in, so the way the lows happen, right, you want to look at it two ways, right? These names will give you a strong reversal, kind of like how it tried to do here, or they'll put in those long bases, kind of channels, maybe start rounding out a base, take out some resistance. Some of like the other ones we've seen, like ELF and WAN and some of those, but this one just hasn't done that yet. It's just pulling back. Not looking very strong. I am watching this. You can see I've got a little bit of an alert. Might not show up here. But I do have an alert set up on here because on the 4-hour chart, I'm liking the way this looks here near term. So that's the level I'm watching. That's put the line on the chart for you guys. And so if it starts to clear that in the short run, that will be a good sign. And it will start to turn the corner on the daily chart and going from there. So this is the 4-hour chart. And it's very clear, right? The support line and the overhead resistance has just been back and forth in this tight range. And so definitely one to watch. And a lot of these look like they're ready to break out, but just hasn't moved yet. Not one of the stronger ones, but that's the level I'm watching on Walton. So not bad. OMG. So OMG was really moving last week and looked like it wanted to go higher. The BTC pullback gave it a little bit of a pause, but this is not a bad pause. This is a very healthy, constructive pause that we saw for the last 4 days. This is versus BTC here. And so you can see it's just the moving average is holding. The volume on the upside was pretty good. The volume on the back is, not too bad. So looking here like it wants to pause here and hold this 10 EMA. So that's the level I'm watching. I had this as a breakout point earlier. So now that moves up to here. And that's really the support level that I'd be watching on OMG. If you go to the USD pair, the 960, 970 area was really the level it needed to clear, and it tried to. It rallied right to that, and it actually went out above it briefly, but just got smacked, and it's right back below that. So this is the level I want to see this thing close above on a daily basis, and that would really start to turn the corner on this daily chart here. The volume looks good at the lows, though. I mean, some strong volume here, but this was a big reversal. You can see the volume on that reversal there. So got to wait. I'm still waiting to see the USD pair take out to that 960, 970 range on a closing basis. Salt. Did Salt finally find a bottom? Man, what's Salt back at now these days? We're going to look at Salt. We are at $126 million market cap. At one point, it had reached a peak of around almost $1 billion. And so this one's pulled back quite a bit here. And so looking at Salt, it's certainly looking like it has found a pretty good low. Some strong volume is coming in. Let me move the chart up off the lows. You can just see this strong accumulation starting to show up. And I'm seeing this in a lot of names where they were just dry from a volume perspective for so long, and then just here in the recent weeks, like tons of volumes back, and so that's a good sign. But Salt's looking pretty good here. Near term certainly has been strong today. You can see it's been trending here. It looks like it's finally pulling in some strong volumes coming in on that 1 hour. On the 4-hour chart, could just be a normal pullback to this breakout point. And really, there's 2 breakout points. You can see this is the most near term. Most likely we'll just test this resistance here, which lines up with this moving average. And so that might not be a bad secondary entry if we could pause here. That's about another 2 to 3% lower. Substratum. So sub broke out here over the weekend. You can see this is the level I was watching, and it pulled right back, normal throwback, right to the breakout point, and it held so far. And now it looks like it wants to move higher here on this 4-hour chart. On the 1 hour, it's looking okay. This is not quite confirmed yet, but it's looking okay. Right now, that's just a bounce so far, right back to that 618 on the fib retracement level. You can see that's where this most recent rally is pausing on the hourlies. But the fact that it held this breakout point, tested it twice, is a good sign. And so from a broader perspective, I think this one's looking pretty good. I think that was a good breakout. This was just a normal pause after the breakout. The daily chart's looking strong, and it looks like it wants to go higher here. First big resistance on this guy is going to be above this level here. So that's going to be another 10 to 15% or so. If we can clear that, then you can really see this one get moving. NEM. Looking at NEM. Let me go to a different exchange that has more history here. We'll go to NEM. That's dollar, although that's not a bad looking chart. MBTC. And yeah, this one has maybe found a low here. This one's kind of been a little sporadic here all over the place. I mean, this has just been in the news and there's been developments and all that stuff. But just looking at the chart, I mean, this is a very strong support area here on the BTC chart. And so far, it's holding, right? It's tested it several times here and looking like it wants to hold that level. And if we zoom in here, you can see there's been some pretty interesting volume patterns here in NEM recently. You see these big spikes right here at the lows. It's being accumulated here. Trades lower volume here on this exchange. If we go to NEM Binance, not as bad, but this is the level to watch on NEM near term. If we can close above this on the hourlies, then it could probably get going here because this is a pretty good little chart on the 1 hour. Lower volume though, just not one of the stronger movers. So I just prefer the names that are a little bit more liquid, but it's getting close here. So NEM will show its next move here in the next day or so. Quant Stamp, one of the stronger names today, moving higher and looking pretty good here on the hourlies. If you go to the 4-hour chart, just look how strong that is. The big volume pop gives you that secondary pullback entry, and here it is moving higher. Going to the daily chart, very nice to see this one finally turning the corner. Just look at that strong volume here right at the lows as this one finally turns around. And, you know, that's why I'm saying, are we at the beginning of a new alt season, right, guys? I mean, we've had these huge pullbacks. Now, I'm not saying we're going to go back to this crazy December, January action, but we're going to start to see some good rallies. And there's just so many names that are turning the corner here, have found a good low versus BTC. A lot of them are already confirming and moving higher. And so you're going to start to see more and more of this. The big thing is always, you know, what's Bitcoin doing? And a lot of these alts are just, they're not going to wait on Bitcoin anymore. They're starting to move higher, especially with Bitcoin being in range. And so, yeah, definitely looking good on this one near term. I'm really liking the volume action here, and just has been a stronger one today. So got to keep an eye on this, but I like those secondary entries. I like these pullbacks, and those are nice. Otherwise, look for like a continuation pattern, like an ascending triangle pattern or cup and handle type of pattern to form, and those would be good. Okay, let me go through my list here. We've covered quite a few. I've got Lumen, Quantum, NCASH. I'm reading your comments. Sorry about the radio silence. Trace, yeah, that's Origin Trail. I'll take a look at that one, Jerk. Hey, that one's looking pretty good. Let's see here. We did WAN, we did ONT, we did POWR, we did OMG. So if you missed those, I covered those. I'll put the list in the notes when I'm done. But we covered quite a few, and I'll put them in the order that I covered them. Yeah, Zen has been looking pretty good for some time now. It's been trending quite a bit. Once it broke that resistance, NCASH really started to move here. So that was a line I was watching on NCASH, and it's just been trending here. But I'm kind of wondering, like, is this thing going to pause? Finally gave you one red day, but I mean, this thing was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 red days or green days in a row. It's very unusual, but it's still looking pretty good. Again, a smaller cap name, but yeah, it's been strong here as of late. Let me go through. I've got some alerts that I track here, so let me see if anything has popped up for me on these new alerts here. Let's see what we got. So Neblio, we covered Neblio. Didn't we cover Neblio? I don't think we did. Yeah, we did. Neblio we covered already, but that one popped up here earlier, so that one's looking pretty good. Some strong action here in the last hour or so. VIA, what's VIA? Let's see here. I haven't checked out this chart here. Oh man, yeah, that's interesting. And so this one just showed up on my radar here, but you can see I was looking at this range here. I don't know when I drew these lines, but I've been watching this one at one point, and it looks like it just broke out with some crazy volume action. How big of a move was that? That was oh, that's not bad. That was only like 78%. Man, did that happen in 1 hour? That did. 73% in 1 hour. And then it gives it all back in the next hour. Wow. So we talked Cardano. Here's another one that popped up here. Let me see how this one looks. This one always has these weird moves too, this singular DTV or however you call it. But look at that wick. Holy moly, 154%. Okay, which one of you guys accidentally hit the market order on this guy? But it looks like it actually found a pretty good low. When you look at the daily chart, but that's just insane. That's just some crazy action there. Here's another one too, Link. And it's one I like long term. I'm really liking Chainlink here. So it looks like it's found a pretty good low, moving higher, going to the 1 hour charts. You can just start stepping its way higher, gives you these secondary entry points. And so Link's looking pretty good here. All right, so let me get back to the list. Looks like I missed a few of your guys' names here, so let me keep going through those. And then we're going to wrap it up. So I'll do Lumens, Quantum, NCASH, WABI. Let me see. We covered ICX. Oh, 0x. Haven't looked at 0x. Let's take a look at that one. And all right, I'll do Atland, Salt. All right. Yeah, we did Salt already. All right, cool. Let's take a look at those. Red Coin. Yeah, I noticed Red Coin was showing up on the radar again, pumping. That's just such a small volume name, and it does that from time to time. So we'll skip that one today, but it's definitely on the move. So Lumens. We're looking at Stellar. No, I don't want to look at it on this exchange. Here, actually, let me got it on my list down here. So let's just do Lumens. That's even worse. Hold on here. Where are you at? Stellar on Binance. Okay, so looking at I picked F. All right, you know what? It's time for my lunch. I've been rambling, and I did like a private stream just before this one, so I have excuses. I'm low on caffeine, low on calories, long on talking, and so I need a break. But all right, so looking at the Lumens. Sorry guys, this is not going to be a 6-hour live stream today. Maybe the next one. Maybe the next one will be a 6-hour live stream. But Lumens has been ranging, so definitely got to keep an eye on this guy here. So looking at how tight this range has been, what does this measure? On the upside, you're only about 2%, 3% to break out. On the downside, less than 2% to support. So this is very tight action. Got to keep an eye on this guy. If everything starts taking off, then Lumens might finally have a pretty good move. If you look at the daily chart, it's just been really quiet. I mean, it had that pretty good low point here. Looked like it was starting to rally, and then just in the last week, very quiet. And a lot of these names, right, what they'll do is they'll just kind of get off the radar. No one's watching them, but you got to pay attention to those. So looking at that. Quantum. And so Quantum had that big move where was that? That was so that was back here, right? When they added the quantum USD pairing. And so far it's just been like just grinding its way back very slowly. Let me see. Is this a? I think it's retraced pretty deep. I mean, if you go based on the candle bodies, right? That's right at the 618 level, probably a little bit below. You got to factor this last candle in. But if you go to the most recent time frame, it's not bad, right? You got to watch this. More clearing this resistance is going to be good confirmation in the near term. Had that strong 1 hour move, and it's just kind of basing right now. So that's what I'm watching on Quantum. Quantum USD, or Tether, however you want to call it. Not quite there yet on the Binance side. Let me go through another exchange here real quick. I think on Bitfinex. Oh, this is Quantum USD Tether. So yeah, same thing. Just got to break above that moving average. Not ready yet. NCASH has been looking pretty good here. And what I like about NCASH, I was watching this symmetrical pattern playing out. It finally broke out. Kind of gave you a pretty steep pullback, throwback right to the trend line here, but it held the breakout point. And so you can see, you know, it's kind of undercut, rounded a base here, and it looks like it's moving higher, and it's looking pretty good. If you go to the daily chart, I really like the daily chart, and this one's looking strong. So I'm liking NCASH. If it takes out this long time resistance, you discount this big bar, but if it takes out this most recent high here, then this thing could really get going, because that's going to be basically new high territory for this guy. So looking good here. What's NCASH valued at right now? $120 million. And I'm not sure. I mean, I get the whole AI thing, but the tracking, the identity stuff, I don't know. We'll see. Tracking where I've been. Amazon's going to do that for us. All right. So, but near term, it's a good looking chart. WABI. Yeah, WABI's been putting in some good bottoming action here recently and finally breaking out. You can see I've got that line on the chart there. It's got these long wicks, but that's just because it's such a small cap name. But looking at the bigger picture, right, it is looking pretty good here. Putting in a very good bottoming formation here. And so that's clear support from a long-term perspective. Want to see this thing hold. But right now, it's breaking out of range, and it looks like it wants to go higher here. The big resistance near term is going to be that. And so you're looking at about 8% up to about 17, 18% here. And that's really the level to watch, because that's multiple resistance points here, which was prior support. So that's going to be the area to look at on WABI. And finally, 0x. And 0x has just been so quiet here too. So another one to keep an eye on. Yeah, these big wicks are kind of news driven, so maybe you factor that out from a daily basis, but looking pretty good here on the daily chart. Just sitting real tight. I like this project long term, and so I think it's one to watch. If you go to the near term charts here, going to the 1 hour, you know, there's not a lot of clues here. I mean, it tests as resistance, so that's really the area to watch here. This all around closing basis, if we can start getting above this. And if you guys still holding 0x from this day, that was a pretty wild day, wild trading day. It made for a good trading day, but man, it was just pumping so hard and then just dropped. There wasn't going to be no 0x announcement on CNBC. And if you bought it because of that, that's what happens. Trace. Look at the Trace token on KuCoin. So this is Origin Trail and smaller volume. Let me zoom out a little bit here, but yeah, it's looking pretty good. Looks like it finally has found a low. And interesting project, you know, one of the supply chain type names. And so one to definitely watch, but I like it here. There will be, though, note. No, I'm not saying it's not going to GDAX. I'm saying they're not going to go on CNBC and get the COO to say, we just added 0x to our platform. It'll most likely come out in the form of a blog post, an email, a tweet, and all that good stuff. But I like 0x. Don't get me wrong. I like it. Okay, cool. I think that's going to do it for now, guys. Let me see, where am I at? So I'm going at just a little over an hour now. and I was on for another half hour, 40 minutes before that. So I'm thinking it's time to wrap this one up. Let's go take one last quick look at the BTC before we go. I will list the names that we covered, or most of them that I wrote down, in the description. And if you want to go back, you'll see which ones I did cover if you missed the beginning of this stream. But thank you guys for being here today. Hit that like button if you haven't. Please subscribe. Check out the channel. Go to nodeinvestor.com for some technical analysis video courses. And check me out on Twitter. But BTC, as long as it remains range bound, I think a lot of these alts are going to continue to do their nice little runs and breakouts. This is the level to watch here. I mean, it's kind of right in the middle. And so far on the 4-hour chart, I mean, this has just been a bounce into the moving average. So I'm still cautious. I mean, as much as I like so many of these setups and so many of the breakouts, I'm just remaining cautious because of this. And it's, you know, it's unfortunate because it's kind of annoying that we're just all waiting on this pattern to play out. But all around, you got to keep an eye on this. First level support, right, in the near term, 6,600 or so. Ultimately, this most recent low around 64. And on the upside, the first level of resistance is going to be right around that 7K mark. And then above that, around 7,200. And so those are the levels to watch near term. There's a lot of positions on both sides of this. And so when it breaks out, it's going to be pretty interesting to see how quickly it gets moving. If you look at the daily chart, you know, right now the trend, the momentum is still very much in favor of the sellers. And so you got to be cautious with that. This could be a little bit of a bear flag. But like I said at the beginning of the stream, right, when I take the big picture view, the 3 to 6 months, the 1 year out, then I'm bullish. And I'm thinking we're a lot closer to the lows than most people believe. And so I'm taking that stance, and I'm looking kind of the longer window. And a lot of these names, in my opinion, I think will be higher in 3 to 6 months, if not more so. But we'll see how it goes in the near term. There's a lot of bears, there's a lot of bulls, but the sentiment still is very much bearish and cautious. And people are, you know, this recent alt rally at least has helped with that, because the alts were getting smashed for a while, but now we're seeing some positive action. And we got to see some follow through on Bitcoin. So keep an eye out for that. I still am holding to my prediction that we will bottom in April, and we will look back and say that was the low. And a lot of these alts were moving, and the market bottomed in April and we're higher. So fingers crossed, that's the way it goes. But until then, one day at a time, take the cards as they come, and we'll go from there. So thanks, guys. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon. Take care.